This is one of our planet's biggest rivers. Yet it's still a mystery. The Amur. When it reaches the wild shore of the North Pacific Ocean, it's completed a journey of more than 4,000 kilometers. Through sprawling wetlands in China, packed with colonies of waterfowl. Through Siberia's woodlands, with 1,000 untamed rivers, teeming with wildlife. And through the rolling, vast grasslands, under Mongolia's big skies. It borders Asia's largest desert, the Gobi. And along its upper reaches, 2 rivers claim to be the source of the Amur, both springing from a sacred place. One constantly fights the desert. The other has banks lined with lush green vegetation. This is a journey to the source of the Amur, Asia's Amazon. For nearly 3,000 kilometers, the Amur River forms the Chinese-Russian border. And the farther upstream you go, the wilder its woodlands become. The border begins here at this confluence, the most significant of the entire river system. These are the Amur's headwaters. Shilka and Argun, 2 woodland rivers. In places, they are identical in many ways. From their banks, primeval forests and bogs spread out into 3 countries: China, Russia, and Mongolia. This cross-border woodland is one of the wildest places on Earth. In these northern forests along the Amur's headwaters resides a top canine predator: the wolf. Prey animals like the wild boar are normally the target of the tiger. But here, they're also hunted by packs of timber wolves. Thousands of kilometers inland, clouds from the Pacific Ocean bring plenty of rain to nurture the lush woodland. But farther south, the woodland fades away, and it becomes obvious the 2 source rivers of the Amur flow from different directions, and from very different worlds. In Mongolia, the Herlin is an important river in the Amur Basin ecosystem. Along it, trees are scarce. This is a land of big skies and vast horizons. The Mongolian steppe, part of our planet's biggest grasslands. Towards the south, it slowly morphs into the Gobi Desert. It's like Asia's version of the Serengeti. Each year, 1 million Mongolian gazelles migrate across the plains that stretch along the Amur River's upper reaches. Herds can number in the tens of thousands. Once they have left their winter grounds, nothing can stop their epic journey. A seemingly endless green and treeless landscape. Traveling towards a specific destination, the herds of gazelle follow a variety of routes from year to year, depending on the climate. The animals move fast and only rest briefly to graze. They get water from dew on the grass. Most of the females are pregnant. Then one morning, the herd slows down. This is the place they were heading for all along. Gazelles are not the only nomads here. Mongolian herdsmen are also on the move, and have been for thousands of years, yielding to the rhythm this land dictates. The only way to make a living here is grazing goats, sheep, and cattle. But unlike the wild gazelles, the domestic herds need a lot more water, so they need to stay closer to the river. Both depend on ever-fresh pastures. Mongolia is a land with very few paved roads. Yet these people of the steppe are quite capable of getting around. It has around the same area as France, Spain, Germany and the UK combined, but is home to only around 3 million people. Since the days of Genghis Khan, around 800 years ago, not much has changed out here. But the question is, how much longer will things remain that way? The vast Mongolian steppe may appear devoid of life and activity. But look more closely, and there's a fair bit of action happening on the ground. Until a few days ago, these young Tarbagan marmots were underground. Now they're old enough to explore the great outdoors. Marmots dig their burrows where they have the best view of the steppe and potential predators. This never-ending sea of grass is home to other little hidden inhabitants. Resting low in the grass are thousands of newly born gazelle calves. Staying invisible is their best protection. Their mothers leave them like this all day. These are the calving grounds of the Mongolian gazelles. The only place where the herds stay put for a week until the calves are ready to run with the mothers. A few times a day, the mums find their calves to suckle them. The young marmots always keep their mothers close too. When all mums on the steppe are relaxed, the little ones feel safe. One of the most peaceful places on Earth, and a good place to give birth if you're a gazelle. But as soon as the calves can run, the herd moves on again. For the calves' first great journey of their lives. In a land with no trees, birds need to get creative. Eagles usually nest up high, but these 3 steppe eaglets were hatched here and will be raised here. The parents will need to hunt many marmots and ground squirrels to keep them all fed. The number of predators there are always depends on the number of animals there are to hunt. A mild winter means mammals can produce a lot of offspring, and that effect ripples up the food chain. The survival of the eaglets depends on their parents' hunting skills. That means experienced parents are more successful in passing on their genes and skills to the next generation. Young marmots also benefit from their parents' experience. Older mothers can better judge a safer burrowing site. Another little mammal on the steppe, the ground squirrel, prefers to live in larger colonies. And their young are also born underground. With 4 kittens to suckle, this mum is under enormous stress. For several weeks she has to eat as much as she can to produce enough milk to keep everyone fed. When she gets out to eat, it's certainly not relaxed dining. Ground squirrels and marmots always need to keep their eye on the sky. The eagles constantly monitor all the mammal dens in their territory. On both sides, it's a battle of the senses. A relentless game of cat and mouse. Straying too far from home can sometimes be a mistake. Not, however, this time. The Herlin, a tributary of the southern branch of the Amur River's headwaters in Mongolia. A dynamic river, constantly renewing itself. Each time the river rises, it takes fresh bites from the steppe. This creates a special kind of habitat for one creature. Thousands of sand martins dig holes and tunnels in the soft banks to make cozy little nests for their young. The fine, damp sand of the steppe is the perfect building material. Soft enough for tunneling, and solid enough for the nests to last until the chicks fledge. These birds grow fast, only about 20 days from hatching to flying. To achieve this, both parents need to feed them constantly. Lush grass along the riverbank keeps herds of cattle close and well fed. And where there are cows, there's dung. And where there's dung, there are flies, which is great for the sand martins and their ravenous chicks. Moving away from the lush green grass by the river, patches of brown soon begin to dominate the landscape. For much of the year, rain clouds never make it this far inland. Every 3 decades or so, there are years of severe drought. This is a land of extremes. Only the most resilient can survive here. Grass turns to sand and desert. Summer droughts push all life to the edge. But winter is just as harsh. Sandstorms become snowstorms. For half the year, icy gales make the Herlin floodplains inhospitable. The best place to sit out the winter is upstream, by the southern slopes of the mountains. This is where the Mongolian gazelles take refuge. By now, it's hard to tell the calves from the adults. The Mongolian herdsmen have to adjust to the changing seasons as well. In summer, they let their herds roam freely. In winter, they keep them close to their camps, protected from devastating blizzards. These southern slopes offer more sun and less wind. In the open plains, gales can be deadly. When the wind begins to pick up, the herdsmen hurry to round up their livestock. And in a blizzard, the wind is not the only thing to fear. Winter on the Mongolian steppe. Wolves follow herds of gazelle. And vultures watch from above to see what happens, waiting for their next dinner opportunity. Two humped Bactrian camels are well suited to the climate with their thick woolly coats and enormous body mass. Temperatures can drop to a breathless -45 degrees Celsius. But standing close together gets them through a particularly cold night. Driven by gale force winds, the snow is sharp like ground glass. These nighttime conditions are perfect for the wolves. As the storm picks up, the gazelles are soon unable to hear or see any encroaching predators. So the wolves close in. The gazelles start to panic. It's only a matter of time. daybreak, the wolves have vanished. And the vultures are up early to receive the spoils. Black vultures are among the world's biggest birds of prey. Here on the Mongolian steppe, they've adapted to eating frozen meat for half the year. The harshest of winters is their season of plenty. Thanks to the wolves. A pair of black vultures will defend their territory and their meals together. They are partners for life. For more than half the year, rivers and lakes are frozen solid. The air is as dry as in the middle of the Gobi Desert. On sunny, windless days, the nomadic herdsmen go out to fetch river ice to melt for their water supply back at the yurt. Water storage for them has to last. Because of the strong gales, there'll be days when it's impossible to leave the yurt. For thousands of years, Bactrian camels have been the best and often the only means of transport in Central Asia. Here in the cold, dry steppes of Mongolia, it can seem like there are only 2 seasons, and change can sometimes feel very sudden. After half a year of bitter cold, all living things yearn for summer. But sometimes summer on the Herlin River can be even harsher than the winter. Plants and animals have not only been longing for warmth, but also for water. But frequently the long, narrow oasis of the Herlin struggles against the encroaching desert. When fewer and fewer clouds from the Pacific reach the heart of the continent, this tributary of the Amur is in for some lean years. Every summer is more severe, until the river slowly dries up. Where millions of fish have thrived for well over a decade, the countless lakes and ponds along the Herlin are now sucked dry by desert winds. Where morning mists used to drift along the Herlin River, the wind now drives salty dust across the steppe. It's a drought year, and the Gobi Desert spreads north and east. This headwater of the Great Amur River has run dry. But the Onon, a tributary of the Amur's northern source, the Shilka River, never runs dry. Along its valleys, summers are always green. This is southern Siberia, near the Mongolian border. Though the Herlin wetlands may dry up, the amphibians and fish of the Onon are safe. Grebes and coots, ducks and teals, terns and plovers, cranes and geese, all gather in one of the planet's liveliest riverscapes. Among the Onon's oxbows, islands and bogs, wetland creatures can wait out the drought years that plague the south. Otters make the most of the abundance. Birds can react to a drought and shift their breeding grounds from south to north for a few years. The climate cycle keeps animals on the move and forces them to adjust and readjust. For most of its length, the Onon runs through Russian territory. On its banks, Russian pioneers built a village. They've been here for 3 centuries. Far from any city, paved road or railway, and nearly 5,000 kilometers east of Russia's capital, this outpost is still self-sufficient. Nature supplies the villagers with whatever they need. Life out here has not changed much over time. It's never been extravagant. For 200 years before the Trans-Siberian Railway was built, boat traffic along the Amur River was the lifeline that connected Russia's pioneer communities of the Wild East. In summer, traders and troops traveled on water. In winter, on solid ice. Long-distance migration is also going on, under the river's surface. Fish from the Amur's lower course come a long way to the upper reaches of the Amur's tributaries to spawn. The fast-flowing Onon, with its pure, cold and oxygen-rich water, and its gravelly riverbed, offers ideal conditions for eggs and hatchlings. The biggest of these migrants is the taimen. Taimen can reach a length of over 2 meters and weigh over 90 kilograms. This pair has already chosen an attractive spawning dell in the riverbed. A good spawning spot should have rough gravel with pebbles just the right size to hold the eggs, and with just the right force of current to keep them free of sand and silt. Male and female synchronize their bodies in order to simultaneously release eggs and sperm. Gravel plays a major role in the life of the Onon River, underwater as well as above. Along the river's upper reaches, there are whole habitats made of gravel. The ringed plover loves gravel. It breeds on gravel. It blends into gravel. And it feeds in gravel, digging out tiny worms and crustaceans. Plover chicks can run and find their own food soon after they hatch from their eggs, giving their parents a chance to relax and preen in the sun. But as soon as clouds darken the sky, the chicks come in for cover. One of the Onon's more adorable natural wonders. In midsummer, millions and millions of fish hatch all along the Amur's northern headwater. Soon the shallows are swarming with fry. For local fish like the Amur minnow, the multitude of migrant fry is a feast. Voraciously they invade the taimen and trout spawning grounds. The minnows wait for the current to wash out the eggs and for the tiny fish to hatch. They may gobble up thousands of eggs, but as long as the Onon River remains natural and productive, millions of fry will still continue to fill the Amur's middle reaches. The life of a great wild river has its ups and downs. Some are extreme. Some come in regular cycles. After years of drought, the dry spell is broken. Once again, a sweeping Pacific cloud front pushes inland across the clear blue skies, advancing all the way to the Mongolian steppe. The downpours can be massive. Within days, the parched grasslands turn green. Herds can return. Water brings back life. Hundreds of lakes fill up. The Herlin flows again. The news spreads fast. Between clouds and river, tens of thousands of migrants arrive to take advantage of what may be the opportunity of their lifetime. Once again, wetlands are spreading out. Young animals are everywhere. Wildlife populations are growing until all good habitats are occupied. The young demoiselle cranes stay with their parents through the entire summer. The parents show them the best feeding grounds, meadows full of little reptiles. In autumn, they'll lead them on their first long journey, from Mongolia across the Himalayas, all the way to India. After years of dust and dull shades of brown, Bursts of bright color light up the floodplains and the sandy steppe. Fire lilies, primulas, orchids and steppe iris. Their roots and bulbs have survived deep in the sand during the dry years. Now the rain triggers them to explode like fireworks. The wetlands of the Amur's two headwaters play an important role in the migration patterns of many birds. On their long journeys, the migrants need resting places where they can safely refuel. Among these birds, the swan geese stand out. Their feeding habits are unique. They dig deep craters into the mud to get to the tender roots of bog plants. In contrast, avocets scan the shallows near the bank for small crustaceans and insects. This way, there's plenty of food for all. Black-tailed godwits poke deeply into the fine silt for mollusks and worms. Behind them are journeys of thousands of kilometers from wintering grounds as far away as Australia. The two source rivers of the Amur, the Herlin and the Onon, spring from the very same mountain. It's the highest peak around here. Densely wooded at its base, its valleys are secluded and nearly inaccessible. This summit is the one true source of the Amur River. Burkhan Khaldun, the Mongols' holy mountain near the Russian border. A sacred place, once known only to its keepers. This is where Genghis Khan, father of the Mongols, is believed to have been born and lies buried. He established his empire here and decreed this to be holy ground, its wild nature never to be touched. For 8 centuries, the Mongols have respected the Khan's command. The sacred mountain of Genghis Khan milks the very last clouds drifting inland from the Pacific, and ultimately feeds the source rivers of the Amur. These rivers link the arid steppes of Mongolia to the pristine woodlands of Siberia and northern China. From their confluence downstream, the Amur River runs through some of the planet's largest unbroken forests. The river soon gathers momentum. An immense network of streams and tributaries drain an enormous catchment area, pouring more and more water and sediment into the Amur's swelling main channel. Along its course, the Amur forms one of the world's longest river borders, with Russia's endless wetlands and wild woods along the left bank. On the bank opposite, China's richest farmland that feeds millions of people. Flowing northeast from the border, the Amur is the longest river in Russia's Far East. Near the Pacific, in steaming summers, animals from the subtropics meet with others from Siberia. The stately Amur drains into the Okhotsk Sea, which boasts one of the richest ecosystems on the planet. But this is not the end of the river's journey. The cycle will begin anew, with Pacific clouds drifting inland and feeding the network of waterways that makes up the Amur, Asia's Amazon.